Hello there. Today I'm talking about the first two Witch films in the Witch series, which is only one to two at the moment, but the second one was a big hit, so there'll be a third one. So, there's only two made so far. Now, this series was written and directed by Park Hoon-jung, who did The New World, which was amazing, and he's done a bunch of other films I haven't seen yet, but he's a talented director. Very classical style of direction. He likes establishing shots and things, and he likes to pace it a certain way so that you're never quite sure where you are in the story. There's a sense of paranoia about what information you know and what you don't know, and there's a nice sense of a classical style mixed with a modern sensibility that creates some unease. So he's a very interesting director. He started off as a writer. He's written some major films, which you know is I Saw the Devil, The Unjust. So he's done quite a few big films, but ultimately he is now graduated to a director. But if you've seen it, I Saw the Devil, you know that he likes twisted stories with like weird characters, and he likes weird takes and weird shifts in tone. It's partly classical, partly punk kind of stylization in scripts. And to be honest, one of these films is much better than the other one. Like, The Witch 1 is a much stronger film. The Witch Part 2, the other one, to me feels like it could have been a 10-minute sequence within another film. Because for all the information you get, ultimately, for all the teasing you get in this film, ultimately in the second one, the best stuff in it is it's supporting characters who could have been edited out of the film. It's like the central dynamic of the first film is repeated more or less in the second film, and it's not as interesting. But I'll start with the first one, obviously. Now, because I don't want to give away too many spoilers, this will be a fairly short video. I want to encourage people to watch the films. Even the second one, which has its problems, is still worth seeing. It's just falls a lot bit in story points, not in direction. Which is funny because for a director who started off as a writer, it's funny that one of the films, the script's a problem. So the first one is, they take the kind of what would be a YA thing, a young adult novel, was a misunderstood teenager who has special powers. The government's after them. So X-Men-ish, it's amazing they didn't get a lawsuit. But they could have had a deal with Warner Bros. To do these films. They're probably protected. But it is very much like a mutant. But it's a specialised information, specialised, focused government conspiracy in Korea to try and get these superhumans. And one of them escapes from the as a child from the place and grows up on a farm with this couple. And you see her has grown into a teenager who is trying to do the best she can, very quiet, has a best friend who's much noisier, who's the daughter of the local sheriff. And the first half of the film is ultimately about her and her family. Her family are struggling on the farm. The mother is losing her mind slowly. The father's trying to do his best, but he's getting older. She's feeling guilty. She tries to do something for money for them, which brings up her skills, which means she's going to be targeted by all these different assassins. And you get a bunch of various assassins try to work out, is she lying to us, or does she not remember, genuinely not remember? And that's a big thing, is like, does she remember her past, or doesn't she? And that's a big thing that motivates through the film, is like, what much does she really know? I'm not going to tell you. I'm just telling you that's the setup. A lot of action happens. A lot of stuff that you think would happen will happen, but it's well done. It's like, it's not the most original film, but all the character stuff is great. Like, and the action is terrific. So you've got, like, the villains all been individually like drawn and acted, and it's all there's lots and lots of characters interacting. Like the girl, her friend, and the family are almost like a surrogate family because her best friend stays over a lot and is almost like the annoying little sister. The relationship with the father of that girl is quite good as well. There's lots of details. There's the awkward adolescence thing is played beautifully. The parents getting older is played beautifully. And you get slow details about the years in between slowly throughout the story. And you get a main character you can sympathise with, but also have some fear of as well. So it's a really good mix of, it's like taking a genre which has existed and doing a very good version of it. It's sort of like doing a good western, really. Because there's a western feel to it. Like it's out of the city. You know, if people can do something that are amazing, but it does have that kind of showdown feel to it, and kind of limited characters and limited situation in the main, and then every so often some other characters show up. But I mean, every time you see a mass of people, they're cannon fodder, basically. But it's really well done, highly recommended. I don't want to get into the plot details. I'm trying to limit it to what you see in the trailer and the plot descriptions in the first half of the movie. I'm trying not to go into a lot of details. So the second film, called The Other One, basically takes place a few years later, and there's someone else who's also been on one of these programs who's also developing these skills. And her link to the first one will get established vaguely by the end of it. This is a film that does not explain itself too well and how it links up. And I saw the first film a few weeks ago, and it's like, is this link up to that? It's trying to be as vague as possible, I think, so the third one can map itself out. But this is basically a remake of the first one, which is, in a sense, a remake of stuff you've seen from America. But this one is like, there's so much emphasis placed on other characters. So this character escapes as a teenager. She's helped by this girl who was getting taken to be murdered by her enemies, which is this local mafia who want to take over her land. The crazy girl saves her. So they join out, have a bond. Her and her half brother, the girl and her half brother, are at the farm. And as the crazy girl is trying to protect them from the gangsters, well, she's also getting hunted by the government. And the plot's as simple as that. You're expecting some great twist, there's none. The characters are what makes it. And the lead character, she's okay, she's not as good as the lead character in the first one, but it's not the actress's fault, it's just that she's not given as much to do. The best characters are the girl that she saves, who runs the farm. She's really well acted. The actress is terrific. The character's interesting. Even though she's not that well developed, the actress fills in so much of it. And there's another character who's hunting them down. We're not quite sure why and who for. We know who for, we don't know the motivation. And she's got like an Australian sidekick, and she's mean to him. And that dynamic works really well. And those characters work really well. And you start to notice you're cutting a lot between that character and the character at the farm, the person who's helping at the farm, and they're carrying the movie rather than the lead character, which is kind of the problem with the film, is they don't have that much lead character because it's kind of a remake of the first film. So they've had all these other characters who you don't actually ultimately need for the story, because ultimately it's not going in that direction, you know. But so you don't really need the characters ultimately, but they're very enjoyable. And what they do is very enjoyable, but they're not actually required for the overall story. So it's a weird film, it's very dislocated. And it's very enjoyable. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but it's very enjoyable, but you don't need those characters ultimately. And you feel that, I'm bringing it up because you feel that through the film. And you're thinking that there must be something coming that really links it all together, and it's really not. But enjoy it while it lasts. It's still a fun film. It's just not. It's just not the greatest film. It's one of those sequels that are slightly disappointing, even though they've got lots of good stuff in them. It's like you expected. My successful sequel usually ramps up a little bit into something more interesting, something starts to develop the situation. Well, this one just restarts at the beginning again, and then makes other characters who ultimately aren't the focus of the story more interesting than the lead character. It's just that kind of dynamic that just doesn't really do much. So it becomes frustrating. By the time you've seen the film, it's like, well, was that it? You know. So it's a bad script writing thing. It's like you're expecting more because as a writer he tends to do interesting stuff with characters and then pay it off. Like the first film paid off everything, and you were expecting the same in the second one. And we're not going to the dynamics of what happens, but you expected this thing to pay off. And at least I didn't feel there was a payoff to anything. I just thought there was like lots of development that was interesting that didn't really lead anywhere. So it's kind of that kind of thing. Without getting into details of what happens, I just felt that the script in here needed another draft to bring everything together and make you not think, well, so what? Because that's the big problem. The ending is, so what? it's got that issue. I'm hoping the third one, now they've got all the setup done, that they can actually go further. Because again, this is set in a farm. There is a kind of western feel to it, even though it's modern day Korea and there's Korean agents and they're all superheroes and stuff, or supervillains. I know the characters are fun enough, but they feel kind of similar to the villains in the first one. They're not as interesting as the first one. Are given less to do. The only one that really works is this character who's coming in to hunt. Because she's got an Australian sidekick. And she's the most interesting part of the film. But it's like, the payoff isn't really worth it. So that's a frustration thing. So the Witch series is so far one of those series that's got potential. It can really redeem itself in the third film if it really goes for it. I'm hoping the third one's not another one where there's a lot of build up and there's no payoff. I hope they actually go somewhere now. Don't have another restart character. I hope they actually build from where they've started, because it's like, well, I do think this could have been like a 10-minute sequence ultimately for all the for what the character ultimately does to the overall plot. It's about 10 minutes to the film, and the rest is just other stuff that's fun to watch but doesn't really mean much to the overall plot, it feels. That's kind of the main problem that's this film. And it's just not as coherently interesting as the first one. It doesn't have the same central character. The character doesn't feel as interesting. And that's just the big trouble. And it's not the actress's fault. She's good, it's just that she's not given much. So that's The Witch so far. Hopefully it gets better. Hopefully it returns to form with the third one. It made a lot of money, so there will be a third one. I'm looking forward to the third one, even though this one wasn't as good. I'm hoping the third one kind of brings it back. So that's me for now. Hope you enjoyed this. Back soon.